Welcome to my new place. I finally made it to a place where I'm not in quarantine prison, and I am in Korea now, so I don't have a ton of setup right now. I'm thinking about getting like a green screen or something so I don't have to see all this crap back here, but for now this is what I have. So I'm sorry that this is the way it is. Like, this is my cinder block prison in Korea while I'm here for a year. So I'm here to talk to you guys about Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon. I see a lot of people come into Yu-Gi-Oh! From Pokemon because they see the opportunity that's available, mostly because they see and understand that Pokemon is like expensive now, and they can go to Yu-Gi-Oh! Which is like a year or two behind Pokemon, theoretically. So I'm going to kind of dismantle that thought process a little bit. The basic principle here is that Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon are not the same thing. Please don't compare Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon collecting. Not only is the card game entirely different and the structure of the releases entirely different, but the actual collecting base and the cards themselves are functionally different, right? So it's not even like the same tactics, and the investment strategy and the knowledge is completely different. When you come in from Pokemon, like, Pokemon guys are used to being able to look up a lot of stuff on the internet and learning a lot of stuff from the internet on Pokemon. In Yu-Gi-Oh, that doesn't really exist. There's no like the pedia and the fandom are not always right. And if you're a guy like me who knows like how to get an answer, like a good answer, the real answer, you know that going to the Wikipedia and the fandom needs to be taken with like a massive grain of salt. We don't really know that the crap that's on there is right. I would not vouch for anything that's on fandom unless I look at it myself. And there's a reason for that, because the actual information is not readily available. We didn't have guys build Yu-Gi-Oh! Like Gary from Pawn Stars or whatever. There wasn't some older dude in the very beginning who talked to guys and worked with the corporations and the companies who like was able to build that knowledge and get like Pokemon like they did in Pokemon to acknowledge things like, you know, Shadowless and whatever, and explain the details and the production costs and the numbers and everything like that. That does not exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! And more importantly, like, the structure that the information is available in Pokemon doesn't exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! So when you look up things like prize card or whatever, if you go to the fandom, you might not get the right answer. And so you might use bunk information to go and buy a $30,000 card. And you really need to get somebody in the loop who knows what the hell they're talking about to tell you the things that you need to know about Yu-Gi-Oh! In order to come in here with $100,000 and do something productive. There are tons of ways to lose money in Yu-Gi-Oh! That there aren't in Pokemon. The most important is reprinting. Reprinting in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is extremely risky investment prospect, okay? And there are tons of pitfalls that exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! That don't exist in Pokemon. Like, the packs look fundamentally the same to anybody who doesn't know shit about Yu-Gi-Oh! And when you come in and you spend $100 on an unlimited LOB pack, you could be buying one that somebody bought off the shelf from Walmart a year ago. And those packs were $8. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could be fucking up big time. You need to understand that the things that exist in Pokemon don't exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! Those safeguards, that knowledge, the access, the information access is not the same. When you want to know about prize cards, that information is not public. You have to go to somebody who knows. Like, you have to actually be somebody to talk to these people in some instances. Even for me, like, it's hard to get a hold of some of the Japanese collectors and the Asian collectors that know all of the things that go on. And the information that exists on the Asian Japanese forums don't exist in the same format in the English forums. So it's important that when you come to Yu-Gi-Oh, you talk to somebody who knows what they're doing. One of the biggest things that I saw working the Steve Aoki deal was that he hired somebody who knew nothing about Yu-Gi-Oh! To get him a $85,000 card. Think about that. So a guy who has a massive bankroll and ostensibly gives a shit about where he spends $85,000 hired a guy who knows nothing about Yu-Gi-Oh! To find out about it. And so he spent $85,000 on an LOB Blue Eyes. LOB is not the same as base set. These are not the same things. I mean, theoretically, if everybody believed that LOB was just like base set, it would be, right? Because perception is reality. And if everybody in the market treats LOB like base set, it will be like base set. But it isn't like base set. It's fundamentally different. There are tons of ways to fuck up collecting LOB. Tons of ways. Tons. And I think that the market is like, well, we've been peaking for 4 years now. 4 years we've been peaking. And people still think that the market is limitless. Like we're going to just, $1 million Blue Eyes is going to show up one day. Bro, who is going to buy that card for $1 million? Now, it can be $1 million in 20, 30, 40 years, but this is a lifetime of work, right? And it's not just sitting on your ass and watching things sell on eBay. You have to do legitimate work to get a market to actually host $1 million card. It includes, authorship, publications, people who actually work in the industry, like in the investment firm industry, who know what the hell they're talking about. And it requires an entire foundation that like literate foundation, not like a guy who wakes up and spends $50 on eBay. I'm talking about a guy who actually picks up a book or goes onto eBay, or not eBay, onto Google and reads something or a bunch of things for a week or so to learn like about what the market is actually doing. Like YouTube videos, for example. Like, yes, YouTube videos are amateur. I'm sitting here like making a bullshit video that's going to take me like 10 minutes to edit, right? But that's not a real foundation for a market that hosts $1 million card. $1 million coins sell because people are doctors of numismatics, okay? Like, it's a huge deal to host $1 million. It has provenance. People know where it came from. It's been slabbed for years. Like, the card is legitimate. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, all of that, like, doesn't exist. We have to build that. That takes decades of work, of legitimacy, market legitimacy. We have to prove that the market is actually real for these people before they sink $1 million. And who's spending $1 million on a card? Somebody with tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars maybe. People who diversify from the stock market when they're not sure that the market is going to hold up. You know what I mean? Like, this doesn't just happen overnight. And to think that we propped up this LOB Blue Eyes to $85,000 and that, like, this is a good buy right now is ludicrous. I mean, it's out of control. I mean, you got to think, like, this is grown out of the market. It's like literally sitting on top of the market as a bubble, right? And the market is not a bubble necessarily. I'm not saying that everything is going to crash, but if you see that the market is a sphere or like, what's the word? Like oblate, right? Or whatever, right? That the market is growing in some areas better than others, right? There is a better way to invest that money so that when the market does round out, right, you're not sitting on top of something that didn't actually grow with the market, or worse, sitting on the top of something that actually sank back into the market, like LOB Blue Eyes might. We're already seeing LOB Blue Eyes sink back into the market right now. It's happening. And LOB Blue Eyes is probably tapped for like a whole damn year because we cultivated a bullshit ideology that we could prop up some shilled eBay auction and push it off like it was real. And it's not. And the market will adjust because once that guy is done shilling and people are done paying the shilled price, these cards are going to sell privately and they're not going to sell for the same amount. If you really did believe that LOB Blue Eyes wasn't tapped and it would grow, or maybe at least beat inflation, right? You could also say that LOB Blue Eyes is not the best place to put your money, right? And so what you would then need to do is find another place to put it. Because there are places that will grow better with the market than LOB Blue Eyes. What happens is when you push people out, when prices go up, you push people out of the market. Those people have to go somewhere. And they go to things that are less expensive. And so now that Red Eyes in Wavy is like $20,000 or $22,000 or whatever, you know, people are going to Starter Deck Joey. I'm sorry. They're going to Booster Pack 10. They're going to all kinds of other things that are Red Eyes related and English and North American to buy those things because they can't afford to buy the first edition LOB PSA 10. Or they're buying 9s or whatever, you know. And so what happens in this natural period of growth that we're experiencing, the pops will continue to increase. Now, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is less populous than Pokemon. And so the pops for Yu-Gi-Oh! Will always remain low. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not as popular as Pokemon is, regardless of the fact that it's a better card game, objectively. You know, so the game is better than Pokemon, and the game is in the Guinness Book of World Records for selling the most. You know, and I don't know if Pokemon is or not, but Pokemon has better, has more attractiveness to kids. And the kids then grow up with it and go back to it, right? And so Pokemon is more popular for that reason. And it has a better volume than Yu-Gi-Oh! Does. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Does have, well, again, you know, people are being pushed out of Pokemon and they're coming to Yu-Gi-Oh! Because they think it's the same as Pokemon. Or at least they can understand it like Pokemon. So, I mean, I would caution you about conflating Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon because they're not the same thing. Like, I talked a little bit about the card functionality. What I'm really talking about is that the collections that exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are much more dispersed than they are in Pokemon. So, you know, in Pokemon there are guys who own 10, 20 or whatever of a lot of these cards. They have whole warehouses and shit like that. Like that kind of sale supply doesn't exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! Some of these cards, like many of them, are under Pop 10. Tons of them are under Pop 20. And almost every one of them is under Pop 100. Where almost every popular Pokemon card is over Pop 100. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Does have some attractive qualities when it comes to investment, right? But the people who buy Yu-Gi-Oh! To keep, those are the real market builders, because those are the guys who aren't increasing the liquidity of the market. Like, it's like a lost Bitcoin, right? A lost Bitcoin is like a donation to everyone who owns a Bitcoin. Well, a card that belongs to a collector who will never sell it is a card off the market, right? So Yu-Gi-Oh! Does have that like strong investment potential, but a lot of guys in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community aren't willing to pay the money to buy from an investor at like 130% of retail. Do you understand? Like, so, like, I think that, you know, you have to understand that, like, if an investor sells to an investor, to an investor, to an investor, to an investor, like, that's speculation. That's a bubble right there, because that investor isn't looking to necessarily keep the card, right? And when that investor goes away, right, or tries to sell the card, he's got to find somebody who has more money to put into it than he did when he bought it. And I don't know that that perpetuality exists in Yu-Gi-Oh! Yet, because the market is still growing. And what we would have to cultivate is, or what people would actually have to do, is we would have to either bring in more investors to the market, which I dislike as a whole, or we would have to naturally grow the amount of people who exist in the market with like the excess funds to pay that number of money willingly. And I don't know that we're there yet. You know, there are very few high-end buyers. And I'm talking like high-end. I'm not talking about like me, right? I'm not a high-end buyer by any means. I'm talking about guys who can dump 30 grand like it's a rounding error. That's not me, okay? And there are those people, and they do exist. But the question that I'm asking is not like, will the market continue to grow, but where can you actually put that money best? And is the market going to grow as well as it does in Pokemon? I don't know that the answer is the same as it is for Pokemon. When you come into Yu-Gi-Oh, the first thing you need to do is not immediately buy LOB. Now, I know that might sound like dumb to some people. Or like people are like, well, I bought LOB and I did fine. Yes, you did okay or whatever, you know. But you can lose on LOB. Despite what people are telling you, you can lose on LOB. And it comes in two forms. One, if you bought like a Blue Eyes and now the Blue Eyes, like I haven't changed the price of Blue Eyes on the PSA sales page. Do you want to know why? Because I'm not confident that a Blue Eyes is actually worth $60,000. Okay? And one of the things that I can't be seen doing is actually looking like I'm manipulating the market, because my goal is to not manipulate the market. It's to build a market with integrity that has a foundation, like a real foundation that has that study and that does have people who like understand Yu-Gi-Oh fundamentally and who work in investment firms, have sold these cards. Like it needs a sale history, right? I'm not a market manipulator, and I'm not going to support the sale of a card that I can't justify as a real sale. Because what's happened now with Blue Eyes is nobody wants to pay $80K and nobody wants to sell it for less. And so now nobody can buy a Blue Eyes unless a guy who puts it on auction, and nobody's put one on auction because everybody knows that if you auction an LOB Blue Eyes, it's going to sell less than $80K. It's a fact. If you don't believe me, put it up for auction tomorrow. And I guarantee you, the only person bidding over $80K is Alex Hertzfeld. It's the only dude. The only guy. So, no. Like, this is happening for a reason. And what you're witnessing now is everything else trying to catch up to that price. And nobody wants to buy an LOB Blue Eyes because nobody wants to pay $80K. And so what are they going to do? They're going to go into other Blue Eyes markets like DDS, like SDK, like PCK, like BPT. All of those cards are now going to see a huge jump in price because now the rest of the market has to catch up with LOB Blue Eyes. And it's going to take some time. This LOB Blue Eyes is sitting on top of the market right now for no reason. Like, it's not justifiable. So, anyways, like, a word of caution. Do not jump into this market and buy LOB immediately. You would be better served doing other things. And two, Yu-Gi-Oh is not Pokemon. Please do not get a Pokemon guy to go spend $100,000 for you in Yu-Gi-Oh. You will lose out. Inevitably, you will fuck something up. I promise you that. Come to somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about. It doesn't even have to be me, man. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't have some power trip ego thing going on where I got to be the guy who helps every millionaire out. Like, I don't care. Don't come to me. Like, I barely have time as it is. Go to somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about. There's like 800 people in the Yu-Gi-Oh market that can tell you that LOB is like super inflated right now. But every Pokemon guy, I guarantee you, like any hype artist that you talk to is going to tell you, oh, buy LOB. And the first thing you should do is look at their portfolio. Do you own a ton of LOB? And the answer might be yes. And you need to take that with a grain of salt. Okay. I just said my piece. Hopefully you guys like took this and are going to do something with it. I mean, if you don't, whatever, you know, it's on you. I'm sure plenty of you agree with me. You know, hey, you know, thanks for checking out my video. Like, I'm hoping to put some more videos up soon. So, hey, take care, be safe, and all that stuff.